reason I got into pastel was I liked the fine line work. I did watercolors for years, and I adore watercolors. And so I combine them. Sometimes I'll do a watercolor and then I'll kind of pastel over. A few of mine, I think the two that sold over there, they have pastel on top of watercolors because I like missed a little somewhere, and you can save a watercolor that way. I also like pure pastel. Part of the reason is because you use 3 types of pastels. You have these are called new pastels. They're hard, but when you put a line, it'll hold. And so I'm going to demo kind of that. And then there's a mid-range of different companies that are semi-soft. So you kind of scrub in some color, but it's not going to stick real quick and be very bright because it's still harder, so not as much of the pastel goes on the paper. And then you buy these expensive schminkies and other ones that are very soft, and they just get on your hands immediately. So I always have this wet rag, and they're like your final details. And if you use your soft pastels too early, you can lose, you can't build.
Yeah.
And I have
mud.
Yes, it's kind of like watercolor. You kind of get mud.
Yeah.
And I have read a lot, and I've studied a lot of artists, and I don't take too many workshops and too many classes because I get overwhelmed with other people's style. And I want to try to stay with my own, but glean things. So Kim Lordier and who was the other one? Over in Lodi, there was a lovely gallery, Knowlton Gallery, Gil Dellinger. So my first class was with Gil Dellinger, and we just used new pastels. And I was so overwhelmed. So it's hard to learn, and you just have to go very slow. And I would say if anyone wants to do more pastel, stick with like 3 colors. Do a light, a mid, and a dark, and just start there and just practice. And you can see in my booth, I do a lot of small. I can do big, it takes longer, and I like the small. I just do. Sometimes it's almost too small. So there's different. I'm just going to go through all this, and I'll demo some. Is that okay with y'all? Okay, so there's different types of boards or pastel that you work on the substrate. This is the same as this, but I don't remember the name. Somebody who does pastel, I'll pass it around. You can feel it has some texture, and that comes in lots of different colors. I think it's a Canson project, but it's not Me Tints. Me Tints is just like almost just a paper.
Pastel stick.
Yes, you feel that texture. This is one of my more favorites. And this black is the same. I bought a big sheet. So generally I buy a big sheet and I just cut it down. Then I started making my own pastel boards. This is a pumice gel. This is a very thick, more gritty, which is new to me. I ordered some from Amazon and I got the more gritty kind, but there's a very fine, and it's a golden product, which makes all sorts of acrylic products, all sorts of binders, and it's called pumice gel medium. And you can put it onto, this is just a mat board, an archival mat board, and you can put it on, it's transparent, some are transparent, some are gray. And it gives you texture. And so there's a few over there you can see different textures, which is fun.
That one feels like sandpaper.
It's very much like sandpaper, and it's a glue and this pumice, basically sand. This is much grittier. I've only done one that way, and boy, your pastel goes fast because it's just getting eaten. And then this is Marty Walker over there, the pastelist. She's like, you have to get pastel mat. So this is pastel mat. It grabs your pastels, so I've not gotten comfortable with it yet, but it comes in all sorts of colors. I actually bought that. I got to go to Paris, which I've never been ever, and stay with a lady who I met on the streets of London who's like, you're an artist, come to my place and paint for me, and I'll teach. And I taught her watercolor and pastel. And so the Sennelier place right on the bank, I was just like, oh, that's fun. I just bought that there. But it's not my favorite yet. Maybe it will be, but it just grabs, so you can't do subtle texturing. I can't scrub stuff and things, so I don't know. Okay, so what I'm going to demo is I'll pass this around really quick and then bring it back to me. So I have to have something. I did a black. I do some dark. It's a little bit of a cop-out sometimes, but I'm just going to show you how I keep a dark form and then start building in the backgrounds and then put the lights on the form, on the darker form. That's my goal. Always I have like old towels that I cut into pieces and it's wet because your hands get goopy really fast. There's all sorts of things you can use, baby wipes, but I find this is a little more environmentally friendly, and then you just wash them. I use them for my watercolors now too. Usually I have a wet one and a dry one. Today I only have a wet one.
When you're working with the soft pastels, you have to be so careful.
You do.
I actually, when I was dabbling a long time ago, put some down and I accidentally sneezed.
Oh, and it went. Yes, yes. And you can fix your paintings. There's fixative, there's workable fixative, and then there's the final. I haven't used that a lot. I read and I talk to other pastelists, and it does change the color a little. And so I just try to frame with the spacers. And the mats sometimes get a little pastel dust on them, but I find that just so pure. Thank you. Okay, so I live outside of Sacramento, in the country, and this is the view from my front porch looking down the street. And so I sit there, especially when I had my daughter and son-in-law live with me for 6 months. I would just sit out there and I would just pastel in the mornings. And so this tree became my friend. So let's see. This is generally how I work, is I will kind of edge it in with something. I don't have my little, I'll use a small piece of new pastel that's just a little lighter. I could use, some people will do like an orange or something, but sometimes I don't like that. I see there's some purple. Okay, so what I do is my tree's gonna be taller because I have this vertical, and I will just kind of, and you barely see it. And I love trees, by the way, so I study trees a lot. Some people, like to do houses. I get overwhelmed with houses because I can't see the form. I can't see the big form. I see all the detail first, and you want to see big forms. And then you crop in the small, and then maybe this little, I kind of need to figure out my horizon line. So I'm going to give it, I'll make it kind of lower. So I usually do this. I'm doing it so lightly, and you're welcome to come up close if you want to see, while I'm doing this. I don't mind at all. Because even I'm barely touching, you get just enough. And then this is kind of background trees, so don't worry about that. That I know I can put it. Well, this little power pole, I want to save that out. So I'm always thinking, when I do my lights, when I'm building, I want this black to be the black of the paper. And sometimes you forget, and then you have to get your eraser and just softly do it. I don't think I brought an eraser, so let's hope that I don't lose that. Okay, so I have that horizon line, and then I'm just going to kind of get something going here just to remind me. Okay, and that's good. Okay, so I usually do background. If I do a black forms, I'll build in most of my background to start, and then I will come in. And if you have any questions, just stop me, because I have a lot of time, and this is a small, let's see, I'll do it down here since I'm working up here. Okay. And this is oh man, hold on, I want to tell you what this box is. Where's my lid? A Hellman. So Hellman is a company, and it's a dad and a son, and the wife was a pastelist. And so he's like, I can make a better box for your pastels, and it's great. So he makes all sorts of sizes. This is the little one. And then you buy this that you stick right in the middle. It folds up. These go on top because you want to keep your pastels not wiggling because they get just a mess and they break. And you push this down, clip them, and then you close it, and you have a little. So Hellman is a great company if you're ever interested in a good pastel thing. Okay, back to the demo. It's going to be a big tree. I'm going to actually crop that. The nice thing is, like, I do watercolors too. Once you lay in stuff, man, with pastel you have a little chance of saving things. So I'm going to kind of go, we're going to go a lot of purple today. It's a purple day. Okay, so you see how bright that is. Like at first it's like, oh, shocking, but I'm very lightly. And this is a mid. It's not the softest, it's not the hardest. I just want to touch in a little bit here and there. And I don't want, I want to skip around in this tree. I'm going to pop it shorter over here. And the sun was early. Oh, this is one of my favorites. I need to buy more of these. Just want to skip around some, and this is what is fun, but also takes the time to just work your stuff in here. So I can give this line. So establish that. Kim Lord is always talking about the touch, the mark making. How do you make your mark? So this is also a fairly hard pastel. And you see how when you put one on top of the other, they kind of blend, but kind of stay their own. And let's go with some other. I want to stay pretty light, but not crazy light. Like here, I would rather have that go up. I probably could erase that if I had an eraser. This tree's got some funky things going on. Okay, now down here is this is where you make an outline. It will be too much of an outline. So you don't want to like draw an outline of the power pole, but you want to keep it so it's like a soft touch. So I'll probably do a gray. So if I mess up, I can probably save myself. And then, okay, so it's going to come, yeah, always make it longer. Something like that, and we'll go on this side. So I'm trying to just kind of establish a shape. And then that reminds me to not. Let's go a darker blue down here. The nice thing is, like, you can have this too wide, and then you can just crop in smaller till you get just the right amount, as long as you don't lose it. This is a little bit like those velvet paintings at first, because it's so black on the, which kind of, velvet paintings. Okay. Go a bit more on the sides. Okay, any questions? Any questions so far? Oh, hey, Marty. Marty is a fellow pastelist.
Why do you paint so many small paintings?
Because I like small. I just like to work small. I mean, I can do bigger, but I get overwhelmed, and I don't know. I have done a few bigger ones. I get overwhelmed, basically, is why.
I do small ones too, but.
And I guess I try to make one, and then if I really like it, I'll think, okay, well, I can make that bigger. But the one like in the Pastel Society of the West Coast that I got it's just 8 by 8. It's just a little, just what I do. Okay, so you can see this tree is just a form, and you can see I'm going to put lights in eventually, but I don't do that till I get my background kind of where I want it. Right now I have these really bright colors, rather garish, but I know that I will have time to soften them. Just kind of tapping some of this, with the magic happening. Try not to lose anything that's really important.
So Teresa, when you do the
Mm-hmm.
are they big?
They have been. Like I have one of my dad that's massive, but you use big brushes and you wet and probably 100 layers, and a lot of dripping. But I painted in watercolor a lot more, a longer time period. So I feel more comfortable, for one thing. Yeah, but I do small watercolors too. I like small. They're easy to carry around. I like to chop up a lot. I like to have little paintings in my house, I guess, because, you know, big one is big and it's just there, and I don't know. Okay, so now I want to try to establish a little bit of this back here, and it's the darkest purple, but not black. So I'm looking for my very, this is kind of a blue. I don't know if I have another set of pastels over here, so I might have to go there. Yeah. And actually, there's a little bit of that on this tree. And it's very subtle. You really can't see it, but it helps eventually in the whole scheme of things. I'm really jumping around, which I guess I usually do. Usually I'm standing like right this, so it's a little tricky to do it from this side. Let's get some of this. Nope, I don't like that. And you know, there's always paper on them, and I'm always ripping the paper off. I don't like to use this. I like to use the side mostly. And if I do need to get lines done, I generally use the new pastels to do the lines. Because if you, whoops, see, sorry.
So Teresa, you said you have soft, medium, hard
Yeah.
pastels. So when did you use one over the other? I mean, not
Soft is at the end.
soft.
Generally at the end because it fills the tooth. So there's like a texture on this, right? If I were to put this soft, I'll put a little soft on because I know like right here, this is this green. Well, I'll just put a little on just for a demo. It's just so soft, it can fill the tooth fast. And what also happens is, like I want to try to put this darker greenish gray. Like some of these I know now, I know this is so hard and it's probably so old that it hardly will go on. So I'm going to try, but see, it just probably get a little bit. But I'm losing any kind of texture. You see how it's almost all filled in? Like this textury stuff is gone because this filled it all in. So let's try to find the green. There we go. And so I'll put it on top of this. Yeah, it's working okay. But like I don't have this nice texture that I kind of want to keep till I get close to the end.
It looks like it's
Yeah, it does because it's so soft. It's just like a soft, it's like powder. If I was a very smart person, I would have already established all my colors and been ready to go. Oh man, this is one bright painting. But you can quickly knock down these colors when you add. Let's see. I'll just add a light gray and it will knock down some of this because you see how that this is what's the nice part. Like I'll do a little bit of gray here, and you see my tooth is starting to go like that texturing starting to fill a little. I know I have probably 5 layers more that I can do, but every time you put a little color on, it changes everything. And so you have to be a little careful. What you do. Oh, and they get filthy too. So if I had a dry thing, I would be drying them. So every time I pick one up, I have to wipe it. But I kind of have them sorted by color, which is really nice, where here I don't. So, and you know, it's a candy store. Every time you go to an art store and you just like, I'll just buy a few. I'll just get a few.
It's like going to Costco.
It is. It's... Okay, so let's see. That's the same. I'm going to get some of these light yellows up here. And depending on how you touch, too, the mark making. Like here I just want tiniest little taps, right? I don't want a lot of this, and I haven't blended at all. You want to blend, and you have to fight. You don't want to blend until you're ready. You just, like, it's okay. I know it's not done yet, and because if you start blending, also you have one color, and let me put a little bit of this up in this corner, and I'll show you what I mean. I'll do this, and I'll do, oh, look at you, Marty. What the heck? That's cool. So here, and so I'm just going to blend it, and by the time I'm done, all my fingers on both hands have been used for different colors. And I try to remember which one, because you don't want to use this finger to do this light colors. And you see what's happening, but it's kind of establishing your background, and it's softening, and that's kind of what I want. But I still have some tooth, so I can continue. Okay, and here I defined it with a little more purple, which I'm not sure I want to do that always, but I'll do it here just to show you how. Oh, that's too blue. I hardly ever wipe off pastel, so if I make a mistake, I hope that I can fix it by putting something on top or something. I'm just going to come in here with some little bits. And this needs to be lighter. And stand back every so often. Okay. Because these trees are going vertical, I think this is a big eucalyptus, and then there's some oaks. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's eucalyptus. But so I can do bigger verticals, and down here I can do, going this angle, still using the side, still using the mid hardness, and I will do, okay, so that is not that color, but have no fear, you'll find it. Let's see. So when I painted in watercolor, I was like a tonalist. I was like Andrew Wyeth's side, just like grays and browns and neutral, and I loved it. And then my first box, when I took this class, we had to buy the new pastel box, every color in the rainbow. And I'm like, oh my Lord, I don't even know what to do. And slowly I started to be a colorist. Because it's quite fun. It's sometimes too fun. It's too much color, I would say. But, okay, so this is a very soft one. I know I want this soft here, so I can just push it on hard, and you see there's no black. There's nothing there. And I probably can only go on top of that a little bit, but that's okay, because it's a quick demo. Okay, so. Do the tree yet. This is just this terrible line right there. Like, not terrible, but it's just like, so to neutralize that, I'm gonna go a little bit. Still not as dark as I want. So I'm gonna come in with this, and this tree's gonna have, and a lot of times I'll break these into littler pieces, but I know I have a lot of little pieces because I've been doing pasteling all week, so I don't really want to break that one. When you break them too small, you can't find them. All these tiny pieces. Okay, so let's.
You always start with black?
No, but this for an easy demo, it's like this is going to be dramatic.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit. I sometimes think it's a little cheating. Like black. Then you just have a shape, but it can work for a few of my pastels over there. Like I did those. It was the end of the day, and those horses, whatever they're called, the lifts on the place over there, you'll see it's a black piece of paper, and I was just able to new pastel these shapes and just get dramatic contrast, which is fun. I do a lot of mid-range colors and then go both ways. But your mind's always working. Whatever color you start with, you're going darker and you're going lighter. And so you're really, this yin-yang thing going on that's just, sometimes it's pretty tricky.
Teresa, if you pastel stuff what are they good
for? Oil pastels, I guess. People use oil pastels to do this. I think then they just blend, but they're so different. You can't get these layers. I've not used them. I had them when I was a kid, and I'm like, why is nothing working? And it's because they were oil pastels. And I didn't know that.
You can also use oil pastels in
With
an
oil.
painting.
That's what I thought is probably your best bet, right? And you probably can
If
put
you want some intense color, you can go
just,
back in.
Yes.
Okay, so you can use oil.
And are there different, there's probably different softnesses in oil pastels?
I don't know about that.
Okay. Because here, you know, like the new pastels, they're quite hard, you know, and so, like, I will do this new pastel here. This paper is a really nice fine grit, so it will take some, you can see, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little bit of blue. But some of my pastel, it hardly will come off because it's just such hard, but I like that. So, and then if I want to put this is a mid, really filthy. And I've also cleaned them on a wet rag, and then you get soft goopy. It's like go on here and say, do you really want to just have a big, thick spot of pastel right there? So, okay, so here is the, you see how fast that goes on compared to this? It comes off the pastel piece, and you really, I'm just lightly touching. And this, to get this subtle, I want to get really close. Also, you can hold, when you're pasteling, if you find, like here is, let's see. This is, oh gosh, what's his name? The really tall guy that does pastels. Marty's not here anymore. No. He taught a class, and you can find your values even when they're different colors. You hold them up, and they almost are the same. This is a blue, this is a kind of green-gray. They're the same value, they're the same family. So when you put it on the paper, they won't be jarring. You know, they just kind of blend one into the other, and yet you get subtlety. So that is something I learned that I never knew in watercolor. Like, these two are fairly close. So if I put this on, oh, that's kind of nice, because that gray was there, and now I'm kind of blending it, because I know I want this softer. And then I put this one on. They're different, but they're kind of making a mass of the same type. And so, and then I can put something really bright on, and you're going to be shocked, because it's such a different value. So that's something that you can learn. That's kind of weird. That's really weird. I'll knock that down. Finally, nope, I don't need that down. And there's pan pastels. I don't know if anyone uses those. I don't. I have some. I don't know how to use them. They're very soft, and you get. I think it's more for a very, very soft look. I'm just gonna make this all just a lighter mess. But do you see how it's blending more? Which we get that one. Okay. So. All right. So this tree is too bright right here. But it was just my first layer, so here I'm going to try to kind of knock it down a little, and maybe I can knock it down a little bit. This green. And I stroked it on two. I should have done tinier. I really like the subtle of just tiny little strokes, but it's all right. There's also. What did he call? Does anyone remember? It's a blender. It's just a piece of. You can buy them. Not Tombow. Yeah, it's paper, and you can make them too. And I use pieces of cardboard some, but it can soften. So you can just, but they get dirty, and so you have to be careful. But you know, when you want to start getting a softer edge, like maybe right in here, you can use a brush. You know. Watercolor brushes will soften some. It will also take off more. I use charcoal sometimes to get details. Well, that is not done yet. Let me get this. I'll work in this little area a little bit more. Let's see. I want it pretty light. I used a lot of my lights up this week because I did a lot of light skies. I love the foggy sky. I live in Sacramento where it's like, so hot, and the blue sky, and I just love the fog and the different colors that are in fog. Okay, so we're going to try to get this without making a line. would be very tall. Let's fill some of this in. This is my go-to yellow. I use it a lot. It's just so, this one and this little guy, the Sennelier. Senneliers are super beautifully lovely and quite expensive. And the Schmenkes, I think I only own 2 Schmenkes. Some people have lots of these. Okay, so that's dramatic, but not the worst. Here, this is kind of just backgroundy tree plant stuff, so that can kind of scrub them in a little more. I can make some trees kind of go up. How's our time?
You got plenty of time.
Lots of time. Okay. Very good. I might be done. I know. It's little. Ooh, that's a very dramatic morning of light. But it can be like that. I mean, have you ever, you wait, like on the water. So those ones I did on the water, I got up 2 mornings early with minus tides, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that light is just, and that's where black paper and these pastels that are pure pigment really just, whew. Okay, so here's very dark black, and I need to just put this in.
Which paper are you using?
I'm using the kind that I don't remember. They're big sheets. I think it's a Canson, but it's the painted on kind. I'm gonna have to ask Marty. She'll know. I like it. It's not real expensive. It's not the Canson Meechants, which is just the paper. And I use the backside of that paper. Cone, I don't know if any of you know Cone. He works for Pixar. He does pastels. He worked on the cars. I bought one of his pastels. He uses the backside of Canson paper, which is just like not expensive. It comes in every shade, but he can just lay out pastel and hit his, oh man. So I bought it just so I could study how he did it for like 8 years. They're very beautiful. And there's a show up in Folsom till the end of the month, which I know is far away, called the Granite Group, and it's this whole group. There's some pastelists and some oil, and I believe a few watercolors, but I think 3, and it's fabulous. Natoma only 8. I don't want to go that brown. I don't know why I picked up this brown. And then sometimes you want to, if you know color theory, and you want complementary colors like red and green, yellow and purples. I sort of didn't really do that. This is like every, but I do like yellows with these kind of muted, no, they just seem to like work well together. Don't want to blend too much, don't blend. Okay, that's good. The baby blue, purple. Between your one line and your other, you have all these choices. If you want to make a road that's a strong road, you can just, but you never just want to drag it all the way across. You want to skip a little, so I'm going to just do a little, that just, and then you can, and I'm using the very edge, and these edges get dull, and then you just turn it and get another edge. This is a much brighter pink. Actually, let's put a little bit this up in this tree. The light, has everyone noticed? The light's just starting to change, that fall light. It's just like in the last couple days. Oh, yay! Which is good. This is like too busy. I don't really want to have it quite that busy. I really need to get this. That's too yellow, way too bright. That's good. I need to start filling that in. Let's go orange. Actually, I need to stand back here. Oh, it's a tree. At least it looks like a tree. This kind of got over blended. I think I maybe can rub a little darker. Let's try this. And when you do pastel, don't always go the same. Turn your wrist. That's why my wrist is sore. I cut a lot of mats yesterday, and I'm doing a lot of pastels. But you just want to hit different angles, and sometimes you want just a little tap, and then that. It's really fun. It's really fun. But the whole time I know this is like my main shape, so I'm keeping that in mind. And this is very dramatic. I know that. I don't usually go quite this strong. Here's another soft one. I think I bought a set of the greens that are the soft. Can't remember the brand, but so I have a lot of soft green. Don't think I want any green down here. And this is, whew. The nice thing when you just have a dark background, you can just make your tree, ooh, that's getting to be quite the, actually, if you make your tree base like a line and too square, and you don't have your eraser, you just have to use your black and try to subtly bring it back. This is where you get tricky, because this is already pretty established. And since I did that, now I have black sitting here. I got to kind of go across and get it on some other places. Otherwise, it's like a weird black blob. I want to get some branches out here too. And this is too dark. I haven't put anything on that, but I'm just going to wait. Okay. White. What's that? I'm going to decide if I do it for
You have 30 minutes.
Oh my gosh, so red. Maybe I should try to do another type.
How do you know when it's done?
You know, I mean, do you ever know when your paintings are done? I teach a lot of watercolor classes, and mostly beginner, and it's so interesting because I have all sorts of students, as we all are. And some more experienced than others, but you don't totally know. But it's good to step away before you think you're done and come back with fresh eyes, because your eyes get tired, your brain gets tired, you can't see values, you can't. So I have two students, Ruth and Deborah, and Ruth is amazing, and she ruins every painting unless I take them away. So now when I teach her, she has to paint 3 at once because she's so fast. And when you're done, pretty soon I look over and she's like layered up and messed up. Oh. And then Deborah's so meticulous that she's never done. Like she's never, because she's so, she's just so careful. And then she does this beautiful wash, which is beautiful. Anyway, so you don't know, and I don't know. I think when you're tired of it, and I like kind of a unstructured. I could keep going for hours and hours. Like some of this, well, like these trees back here. This was the black of the paper. Obviously, they're not there. I can. This is good. I'll show you. So I have a black. I have like 3. Well, some are black. And some are not. And Gil Dellinger, when I took his class, he's like, you can never use black. Black is wrong. I'm like, well, if you tell me something's wrong, I might just have to try it. And it is. It's very dramatic. I don't. But, okay, so I can put it a little bit on. And you see how much is on the pastel. So I have to wipe it. I should wipe it every single one. But I kind of want to just, a little bit of faintness of something back there. And since this is such dark paper, if I had a tan or a green, I wouldn't be using black to put my tree. I would be doing something else. Okay.
So at this point, you could actually walk away.
I think you could. it. In fact, I'm going to show you what I do. And what I do with a lot of my students is I start getting out a piece of mat board. Like I could put color and stuff there. And let me put one more. I can make this. This is the thing. Watercolor, you just can't do these like crop-ins, you know, you kind of establish it at the beginning, but like I can make this skinnier, and then I can just like pull. So I just want to show you what happens when this is a very soft. You see how it kind of covers everything up? That's right. And probably I can't bring a lot back because this is so soft. It just kind of goes with I do this. So, and we're getting to the point. This is a really crazy map, but I just happen to have this one. You know, you start holding it up, and you kind of go this and this. That's a gold. Usually I have a neutral, and you can see like a blue does really weird, but it helps you visualize kind of where you are. And you just have a piece. You just have a mat, an old mat. Here we go. Okay. This happens to be in this frame that I was going to use. You know, you just kind of hold it up and say, okay, is it working? Is it not? Like this needs to be smaller. I do that, and I stand way back. I put the frame here, and I stand back, or the mat, and I just try to clarify where I'm going and what's going on. Like this is very dramatic, but also kind of cool. Like this, I blended a lot. And I kind of like that texture where I'm getting better at like stepping away. I'm going to make this smaller. I'm not using yellow, so I need to find a very, very light. And this is where I put my finger in here and I just hold it. I think a lot of us artists do that with watercolor oil, just so you have that. And this kind of coming in, that's kind of a weird shape. This is the noodling stuff. You can come back, 10 times and just noodle away. I would tell you, don't do pastel in a darkish room because you can't see your values. I've done that many times, and then I bring it out in the lighter the next day, and it's like, whoa, I shouldn't have been working on this. I really couldn't see the subtle values. I guess that's true with any kind of art, but whew. So you can just go. And this is just one style. There's some that put on lots of softness. I want to glue a little white because there's a lot of fences out in the wilting world. Okay, we'll do this reddish. I think it'll show. This is pretty hard. And I'm wiping it. Okay. So, if I'm doing a fence and I want to, I would make this small enough so I could just go, because if I do this point, I don't always like drawing that point. But if I make it, this one won't break. Oh, there we go. I love doing this. You just rub it just a little, and you just go along. You get a different shape than if you draw the point. Now this is so the values aren't that much, so you can't really see it that much. But so I'm trying to think where I could put. So if I don't, let's say I'm rubbing right here, and if I don't switch, you're going to get the same thing, but if I turn it a lot, you're going to get just some subtlety. More such. Right. Yep. That's kind of cool, though. It's kind of like a ledge. Although now you have this red here. Usually, if I have something in one place, I want to put it somewhere else. Not everyone believes in that. I just like it because it makes your eye move around. So I can probably put some up in this tree. It's close in value to the black, not totally. And then these trees do have holes. They have the gaps. But nope, gotta be way lighter. But it's not as light as the sky. It's gotta be bluer, purplier. Ooh, that breeze. Yeah, some of these I actually but see, if you do them all and they're all dots, then they all look the same. Then it's like, well, that's kind of dumb. That's not what I really want. No, I want that. Go away. And that's where the blending tool is good, or coming back with a little bit else, just to. Yeah, I kind of want it more just as a shape, I think. Anyway, I think that's close to done. Any other questions? See, this is kind of stuff where it's like, did I want to do it? Should I do this? You know, and that's where you do it again and again. And you just make, if you do like 3 or 4, and you compare them, you're like, okay, maybe I don't like that. But
Is it pure pastels? You can work with water.
yes,
If you have pastels
yes, right, with oil. You don't want to mix those.
you don't want to do pastel.
Well, you can. You can put oils on top of watercolor. You can put oil pastels on top of watercolor. You can put dry pastels. I don't, and I think the oil pastels. Do they come this small, like little? They're bigger, rounder.
They're just round.
Yeah, so I don't think you can get the right. And I don't. When I used them, and it was years and years ago. You know, like you can see, I just touched a little and it goes on. And I don't think it will do that as well. It's more, you know, smearing it on.
So I got a box with that. I'm not sure.
Well, that's because she's a pure chalk pastelist. But there are people that use oil pastels.
You can also use them as a beginning suggestion under an oil painting.
Right.
Or use them like a watercolor, but you just put a little dab.
Yeah.
And then you take your turp or your
And it
Gamsol
will
and do
smear
a
it.
wash.
Right. And that would be kind of like a watercolory, but it's an oil pastel
and you
water.
can do that with oil paints.
Yeah. Always, whatever anyone tells you, you just do your, you know, you're like, okay. Because sometimes people are like, you know, all the rules of, I'm just like, well, you know, today I'm just going to do this and see if it'll work. And sometimes it does.
Is your work with watercolor or oil?
She's oil.
Yeah, I thought so. You have the big one with the boats.
I have 2 separate boat paintings, but they're vertical. The rule is you can start with water, but you have to, and you use oil, but you have to end with oil. You can't go back to water after
Right.
you use the oil.
Yeah, and you should just try them out. Try them out on some, isn't there like oil paper, like paper that's kind of from, because I know somebody, she mounts them onto some kind of board, and so it probably could, if you want to try to make it sort of a more watercolory,
Use the
I would use the Gamsol and do it onto paper, not canvas or maybe linen. Linen, could be
I
cool.
use it on linen.
Yeah, linen. Oh man, Terry Mura, some of those linen paintings of Tuna. Terry Mura. He lives up in Cyprus. He just uses linen. And it sometimes is sort of watercolory, but it's an oil. Okay, so this I really don't like, but I don't know if I can fix it. So, but that's the nice thing about a mat. Like, you can always cross when you take your mat. Let's do this crazy gold mat. It's like, oh, you're just gonna go away, you know, and you just. And like this needs to go over more. There's a lot of things, but anyway, you know, think of mats because mats help focus your eyes and finish up paintings. And I made this super rough paper and I haven't used it. Let's see what happens when I figure out something to do on that. So you can see it's blue, right? So you have to go light and dark. What could we do? Here? I can. Now, this is just the pastel medium that's gritty. And I bought, on Amazon, I was like, okay, I'll order some new pumice gel medium. That's what it's called. It's a golden product. And I put it on colored watercolor paper, or I put it on, this is archival mat board. Well, this is super great. I'm not used to it. Yeah. So it can give you an interesting texture. But you need something that you want to do that you don't need creamy soft because it's going to be gritty. And I'm trying to think, well, maybe I can try those horses out there. I don't have an image. I can't visualize stuff very well. No, I don't really want to try that. Yeah, we could try.
Flowers over there.
You're asking me to improvise here. I'm trying to think what I could do. Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. Do you see how much of the pastel is coming off? So I can probably like put some on, and then I'll put on some of this. Oops. Oh, when you drop them, they go into a million pieces. It was almost gone. And I have my crumbs to use.
Almost like drawing on sandpaper.
It is, and this is super gritty. So I'm going to lose so much. So I can put this much on, and then I can say to myself, do I blend? You know, because I could use my finger and wear off my skin, yes. Or I can keep using these soft ones, which I know, but that's kind of interesting. It's almost like impressionistic, you know, with all the pointing. And, you know, you're just kind of going, that's too dark. I just kind of want to get and depending on what paper is underneath, you know, what your color is underneath, that's one of the colors. Where in watercolor, it's the white. Okay, so I love the hill across the way, the blues and the grays, so I'm going to try to smear that in. Okay, this is interesting because this is so close to the color of the mat. So here's our across the bay. And you know, water, I usually put a piece of tape to get my water exactly level because it's so hard to get it level. Oh man, this stuff just eats the pastel. You've got to use your cheap pastels. Okay, so I just blended that. So that's kind of cool. You can blend on this.
I didn't see it, but I wasn't looking for it.
And we want to get some more. Some purple up here. Yeah, so this works. This could be kind of cool. So my grit is still there, so as I put this on, you know, I have some of that coming in still, and that needs to be a little darker. Don't want to go brown though. I want to stay with just cool colors. We got to get some fog, because there's always fog in over there, it seems like. Some whites. Now, I put that on knowing that I'm going to, clean my hands. Okay. And when you do painting, very important, go all the way off the page, you know, because you never know. You just want to try to continue that. But yeah, this will be good for exfoliation. Jeez. Okay, so this needs to be darker, obviously. It's the mountains, the hills, so that's what I already used. This is brighter but darker. Okay. Sometimes I just like all these blends when they go on top of each other. Ooh, these picking. After studying this fog for this week, I realized there's always some tan and yellows undertones, at least some parts of the day, but not too much. Like that's too mustardy, but it's pastel, so you can sort of blend them. And sometimes the sky is just like this light color, and this is called a layer cake. You can see it's just all layers. And then I'll go bright blue here, and then I will do a middle color. So Probably this should go all the way up because otherwise they're all the same layer, and that's kind of silly. This is a hard pastel. Can you hear that? It's like, I still had some of that white on my finger, but yeah, it's gonna work good. The soft pastel just blends much faster because it's just sitting there waiting.
Teresa,
Mm-hmm.
I know you're using but are there any devices
There are.
that are rubber that you can put on your finger?
There are. I don't like them. I just need to have the tactile, and so I end up, washing my hands a lot. There's also, I just bought some long, they're like brushes, but they have plastic shapes on the end, and there's different thicknesses and different shapes, and I found that those are kind of nice instead of using my fingers so much, if I remember, because they're new and I forget. But they can give you, like you saw, I'm doing a lot, but when I want to do subtle blending, my fingers are too big. And so they actually help. They're like just like a brush, like a watercolor brush, a long nozzle, and then at the top, it was a set of like 5. And there was a flat one and a point and then a harder point, and they're kind of cool. I used them on a few of those pastels over there.
Do you use like brushes that are for fingers?
You can, but always when you use a brush, you're removing. It never is gonna. Now I've also like, if this is going and I'm like, oh man, I just really want to make this just blend. I'll put a whole bunch. I'll just put a whole bunch in one spot, and I'll wet it. I'll use a watercolor brush. Generally, I use water because I have watercolor brushes. I'll use a little bit of water, and I'll start blending it. I'll just paint it, and it's like a gouache. It becomes like a gouache. And I've saved a few pastels, or usually they're a watercolor pastel blend where the pastel is just like too stuck, and I can just soften it up like a wash. But it is opaque, so it's not. You have to know you're covering up a watercolor for good when you do that.
How do you get past mistakes?
Well, sometimes you just throw them away. But sometimes you just have to. The hardest thing with pastel is blending too quickly and getting your values wrong. But you can, until the tooth is full, like, I don't know, let's say I want this sky. Well, let's say this. What do I want to fix? I don't have a lot of definition here, so let me try to make a darker line here. I can still continue as long as I have tooth. Here the tooth is almost gone because I put so much of that creamy white. So if I were to try to define a line here, it'd be harder. But down here, I know I have some tooth. So I can like define, but it's not going to be a really subtle line because this is super gritty paper.
It's hard to cover up what's underneath.
It is hard if it's too filled, but if it's not too filled, like on this tree, I was able to hide some stuff a bit. But you get about 4 or 5 layers in, and then you don't blend. You just keep, you don't blend until the end. That's super important. I used to blend at the beginning, and then say, now my tooth is full, and now I can't do anything more. So I love how that water line just always is so. I'm still trying to figure out how it works for how water works, and how when you view it, it's very small and it gets weird because I don't live by water. Anyway, it's just fun. Okay, so that's kind of. I will work on this more maybe, or maybe I will just say that was a nice little bit of demoing. But I do like this texturing for right here. It gives you some interesting movement. And you can put texture on some parts. I've done that. Like I know I wanted this tree textured, so I put the pumice gel medium, and the other part would be smooth. And it was kind of cool. It's multimedia, right? So, yeah. Any questions? I think I'm getting done.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for watching. And thank you, Susan. Yay! All right. And now I'm going to wash my hands.